On this Tuesday night, battleground Quebec. How the shifting mood in the province could shape who wins the election and how the Premier here is trying to sway the vote. Jody Wilson-Raybould, in her own words.
I have faced discrimination. I faced racism.
Canada's former Justice Minister on her new book, Indian in the Cabinet. Is this your moment of revenge? Political pitches to parents comparing childcare commitments and costs. Plus, he was bold, brilliant, and very funny.
Remember the good old days when washing your hands didn't take 3 hours?
Remembering Canadian comedian Norm Macdonald.
Global National with Dawna Friesen.
We are in Quebec City overlooking the spectacular Chateau Frontenac, built by the CPR and opened back in 1893. It was once the tallest building in Quebec's capital. There is a lot of history here, and it's Quebec's role in the next political chapter that we are looking at tonight. Good evening and thanks for joining us. We are in the federal riding of Quebec and it's one to watch. For decades, whichever party that wins here in the capital has won the most seats in the province. Last time, the Liberals won this riding, but only by a tiny margin. Quebec has 78 federal ridings. In 2019, the Liberals took 35, the Bloc Québécois 32, the Conservatives were a distant third, and the NDP won just one riding. Going into this election, it looks like there could be dozens of close races. In our top story, Mike Armstrong looks at what's at stake here.
You would be hard-pressed to find a more open race in the country than this one. The towns that make up the La Prairie riding in the last 3 elections have swung to 3 different parties. If there's a wave, voters here tend to ride it. It means people around here have good taste, this man says. Province-wide, Quebec can be volatile. There was the Orange Wave in 2011, the Liberal snapback in 2015, and the Bloc's return to relevance in 2019. Pollster Christian Bourque.
When it comes to federal elections, Quebecers are very much the kings and queens of strategic voting.
This time around, there hasn't been a wave, but it's fairly clear someone wants one. Quebec's premier spent the first half of the election sort of on the sidelines, everyone wondering if he'd get involved.
Hey.
Well, he did.
Be careful.
Legault has spent the last week very much trying to push his supporters in a specific direction.
Our theme is leadership.
After the leaders' debates, he says Quebec nationalists should avoid the NDP, the Green Party, and the federal Liberals, that those parties would tread on provincial jurisdictions. He's also not pushing Yves-Francois Blanchet and the Bloc Québécois.
Mr. Blanchet cannot form the next government.
Legault's support is squarely behind Erin O'Toole and the Conservatives. The question is how much of the electorate he can sway. Legault isn't just the most popular premier in Canada, he's one of the most popular ever.
Right now, absolutely, yes. For the last 15 months, he's at approval ratings close to 80%, which we've never seen.
We have 3 leaders saying...
That popularity has meant even the leaders Legault has criticized have resisted fighting back. Political scientist Daniel Belland says Legault's push for the Conservatives might help, but they may have started the campaign too far back.
They were not doing that well in the polls, so will they get many extra seats in Quebec because of that? It's not sure.
Please help them understand
now, the big issue in the campaign for Quebec
discriminatory laws
may end up being that question in the English debate and the emotional backlash that followed.
She's the referee.
The premier tried to turn it into another reason to support the Conservatives, but it's the Bloc that turned the controversy into a bump at the polls as defenders of Quebec. It may turn out to be a gift to their campaign no one saw coming. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
With the election 5 days away, Jody Wilson-Raybould's new book has hit store shelves. Once a star in the Liberal cabinet, she was Canada's first Indigenous Justice Minister and Attorney General. The book is called Indian in the Cabinet, Speaking Truth to Power. In it, she recounts detailed private conversations with Prime Minister Trudeau in the final days leading up to her resignation. She writes, either the Prime Minister knew everything that happened and did not care and was clearly lying to me and the country, or he did not know. He was either complicit or incompetent. She says at one point she told Trudeau, "I wish I'd never met you." The SNC scandal also led to the resignations of Trudeau's top advisor, Jerry Butts, and Privy Council clerk, Michael Wernick. And the ethics commissioner found Trudeau violated conflict of interest rules by attempting to interfere in the criminal prosecution of SNC-Lavalin. Jody Wilson-Raybould, thanks for speaking with us today. Let me start by asking, why did you write this book?
Well, I have thought about writing this book about my experiences, not only in federal politics, but Indigenous politics for quite some time, and I found myself, like many and most of us, being isolated during COVID, and found it to be a really good time for self-reflection and to write.
There's also a lot of detail about private conversations you had with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. One of the things you write is, he told me I had not experienced what I said I did. I know he wanted me to lie. This man was not the leader I thought him to be. So talk to me about the timing of releasing this is now, just before an election. Is this your moment of revenge?
Well, it's not my moment of revenge. I don't think of it in that way at all. I'm proud of the work that I did and the book that has been released today. I want to, and I feel it's important to relay my experiences. I had announced the publication of my book to be in the fall of 2021, and certainly announced the publication date well before the election was called by Justin Trudeau.
What, in your view, was at the heart of the clash between you and Justin Trudeau? Was it that you saw the SNC matter as a legal issue and he saw it as more of a political one that needed to be managed?
Well, I mean, for me, and you'd have to ask him the same question so he could reflect on his views. But for me, I mean, I am a proud Indigenous person in this country, and I have a very different worldview when it comes to addressing issues. I mean, some might say that I am naive in talking about this, but I truly believe that we can, and this is an overused line, do politics differently.
What message do you think your story in federal politics sends to women, especially Indigenous women, about their future role as leaders in politics?
I'm hopeful, and I remain hopeful, and I'm not, even though I have some mixed emotions and reflections on my experience in federal politics, and one of those is that I'm sad, and that sadness comes from the lost opportunity to do what we said we were going to do when this government came into power in 2015. I have faced discrimination. I faced racism around the cabinet table, marginalization of my voice, even though I have lived experience and expertise in particular subject areas. I know that this is an experience that many women and individuals have in their work lives.
Do you still consider yourself a liberal, and are you willing to tell us how you voted?
No, I'm not going to tell how I voted, but you know, I had never been a member of a political party in my entire life. That's not part of the way I think about the world in terms of compartmentalizing individuals, in terms of labels. The Liberal Party under Justin Trudeau is certainly not something that I understand or align with. And I hope that my experience, and it was painful at times, it was emotional, certainly it was joyful, and I, through writing this book, you know, did, as they say, I went on a bit of it was a healing process for me. I look forward to figuring out what the best place is for me to continue the work that I've done my entire life.
Okay, Jody Wilson-Raybould, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We talked about a lot more. You can hear the full interview on globalnews.ca/globalnational. Well, voters are running out of time to make their choice, and it's unclear if the partisan personal jabs between Liberal leader Justin Trudeau and Conservative leader Erin O'Toole will motivate voters or turn them off. When things get personal, it is a clear sign of a tight race. And as Abigail Bimman reports, Trudeau is sharpening his anti-O'Toole messaging in the final stretch.
The biggest problem Mr. O'Toole has is that he doesn't lead, he misleads.
Sharper attacks in the final week.
He can't get his candidates vaccinated. He can't explain why he thinks it's okay for non-fully vaccinated candidates to be going to seniors' homes.
The Liberals have been building their campaign to drive home the message of a two-person choice.
It does make a difference whether or not there's a Conservative or a Liberal government.
Polls have been tight from the start, increasing pressure for this final stretch.
The idea that the Liberals are actually under pressure to even win the plurality of seats in this election campaign is really clear.
Political experts say a particular challenge for the Liberals will be getting out the vote due to residual annoyance with an election many still feel is unnecessary, plus the pandemic effect.
I think what's different this time, and it hurts the Liberals, is that I think we're going to have lower voter turnout.
One Liberal minister in a tight BC race pushed back on that.
We're not seeing that now. People are pretty engaged now.
Campaign sources say they will be targeting a lot of tight races with seats they think they can either pick up or hold on to, including many seats they lost in 2019. And the pace of the already fast-moving campaign will pick up too. Starting his day in BC Tuesday, Trudeau makes another stop in Ontario's GTA before ending the day in Atlantic Canada. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Richmond, BC.
The Conservative leader has called out Justin Trudeau several times for calling an election during the pandemic. Today, Erin O'Toole was also touting the Conservatives' plan for a refundable tax credit for childcare.
Today, I announced my plan to secure childcare for Canadian families, to put parents back in the driver's seat when it comes to choosing the kind of options that work best for their kids, to help lower-income families today, not 5 years from now, with up to 75% of childcare expenses covered.
Childcare expenses can eat up a large chunk of a family's budget. It can sometimes make more financial sense for one parent to stay home. All the parties know families need help. Tonight, Anne Gaviola looks at the promises for childcare.
Quebec's subsidized daycare system has enabled many parents to work, and that's been good for them and for the economy. Boosting parents' participation in the labor force has helped grow GDP, but in other parts of the country, parents still struggle.
I was trying to work from home, and so was my partner, and, Zoom calls with the toddler and preschooler on your head, those sorts of things. It was really tricky.
For Carolyn Ferns, childcare has been hard to find and expensive.
The wait lists, the uncertainty, the fees, and that we really need to work together for something better.
Political observers suggest this election is a referendum on childcare. The Liberals and NDP pledging to move forward with a $10 a day plan at a cost of $30 billion. If implemented, it could save an average family in Toronto nearly $20,000 a year, Calgary almost $13,000, and Halifax nearly $9,000 annually. 8 provinces have already signed on, but not 2 of the biggest, Ontario and Alberta. The Conservatives say they'll scrap the Liberal plan and instead implement a refundable tax credit aimed at helping lower-income families. The price tag, $2.6 billion over 5 years. O'Toole's plan could be implemented quickly and wouldn't cost as much, but the scope of those it helps may be more limited.
Every program has cost and benefits, and the benefits society of subsidizing childcare, I believe, are pretty substantial.
After examining both plans, economist Gordon Cleveland concludes the Liberals have a far better plan for making childcare affordable, while the Conservatives' tax credit would only have a minor effect on affordability.
There is a growing consensus about what might be the best, most impactful approach for Canada, and it mirrors the path already being taken in Quebec, which offers affordable, subsidized childcare like the Liberals and the NDP are proposing, as well as a tax credit like the Conservatives. You might call it the best of both worlds. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
We'll have extensive coverage on Monday on election night, right here on Global Television, as well as on History, Global News Radio, and globalnews.ca. He was a one-of-a-kind comic. Coming up, fans mourn the loss of Canada's Norm Macdonald. Quebec is an Algonquin word meaning where the river narrows. We are on the traditional unceded territory of the Huron-Wendat people. We're back in a moment.
Mr. Reynolds, what are you doing?
Yeah, I found this backstage. Oversized hat. It's funny.
Sad news about Canadian comedian Norm Macdonald. It's been revealed he had cancer. He kept it private for years, and Macdonald has died at the age of 61. He was born in Quebec City. He did thousands of hours of stand-up comedy all over North America and went on to Saturday Night Live. Macdonald was revered as a comedian's comedian while making the rounds on late-night shows. Tributes are pouring in, including from Conan O'Brien, who said, "I will never laugh that hard again. I'm so sad for all of us today." Linda O'Leary, the wife of celebrity businessman Kevin O'Leary, has been found not guilty of careless operation of a vessel after a deadly boat crash. In August 2019, O'Leary was driving a boat across Lake Joseph, north of Toronto. It collided with another vessel. 2 people on the other boat died. The crash happened at night. The judge found the other boat did not have navigation lights on. The judge also rejected arguments alcohol and speed may have been factors. Ahead, Ontario's Western University on edge as a string of violence starts the school year. Just days into the academic year, Ontario's Western University has been rocked by violence and allegations of sexual assaults. A first-year student has died, and social media has exploded with reports of women being drugged at a party on campus. Mike Drolet on what we know about the incident and the police investigation.
Western University's reputation is no secret. For students, it's a great school that also knows a good party.
The first thing my parents pretty much said to me when they dropped me off was like, be careful, go in groups.
Western welcomed back students this past week and almost immediately was hit with violence and tragedy. First-year student Gabriel Neal, who dreamt of becoming a doctor, died after he was violently assaulted near campus. A 21-year-old man has been charged with manslaughter. Police are also investigating at least 3 reports of sexual assault on campus involving 4 women and possible sexual violence at a 600-person first-year student residence. And one out-of-control party saw police pelted with bottles this weekend. London's mayor is livid.
What the hell are they thinking? None of this is okay, and it can't be swept underground or ignored.
But not every incident has been reported, at least not to authorities. Unverified posts circulating on social media allege a group of young women attending a residence party were targeted.
I've heard that 30 girls in this residence were drugged, and I've seen firsthand girls throwing up, and a girl on my floor got just terrible things were happening.
The London Abused Women's Centre tells Global News it has received a handful of calls from alleged victims. Jennifer Dunn says it's alarming, but sadly not surprising.
I think that there's a culture problem at every university. Western is in the news right now, but next week it could be York University, right? Western is in the news right now. There is a problem, but that stems from a bigger systemic problem that needs to be addressed.
Police say they want to address it, but they first need students to talk to them. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Up next, the pandemic has been hard on tourism in Quebec City. Why that is beginning to change. You're looking at the mighty Montmorency Falls. We'll be right back. Quebec City's history extends back thousands of years. The first inhabitants here were Indigenous people, and it is one of the oldest European settlements in North America. Visitors from all over the world come here, or at least they used to. When the pandemic hit, everything stopped, and now the city is trying to get back on its feet. You can feel the longing to get back to normal. Do you feel ready after months of the pandemic to have a vacation?
Oh, ready is not the word for it.
This couple is from Calgary. Among the thousands of tourists who have come to Quebec City, the summer was busier than expected.
The Canadian and Quebec market and the Americans are coming back as well, but there really was an amazing demand in the city this year.
But for some businesses, the wait has been too long, especially in Old Quebec, where they rely on tourists. For rent signs are everywhere. There's a good crowd in this cafe, but like in so many places across the country, they are short of staff, limiting how many tables they can serve. Hotels have the same dilemma. The tourism industry is fragile, and the pandemic isn't over, making it hard to plan.
One of the surprises that we had was the level of challenge that we're having caused by the labor shortage, which is impacting volumes and revenues.
Allowing fully vaccinated international tourists in has really changed the game in terms of demand. And here in Quebec, everyone must show proof of vaccination to go to places like restaurants, even to sit on the patio. How do you feel about that?
I've got no problems. I mean, I know that everybody here is immunized, and so the cases of COVID coming out from here will be nil to none. So I feel really comfortable, and that's what really attracts us to this place. And I wish Alberta would adapt the passport.
It is the ticket to feeling safe, allowing visitors to happily bask in the last rays of summer. And that is Global National for this Tuesday. From Quebec City, I'm Dawna Friesen. The Terrasse Dufferin wraps around the Chateau Frontenac, just one of the beautiful spots here. You won't regret a visit. Thanks for watching. Jeff Semple will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I'll see you again on Thursday from Brampton, Ontario. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.